Today I'm having a conversation with Wayne Ellis. Wayne is a Master Practitioner in kinesiology with over 25 years experience helping people to attain their dreams and goals and improve their overall health. Before we continue with our conversation, may I ask that you like, share and comment and click on the little notification bell. This helps us immensely with the algorithms and everything else that goes on within YouTube. Thanks very much in advance. Well, welcome to the show, Wayne. It's good to see you again, mate.
Always good to catch up with you, Andrew.
It's been a while. I think I checked, it's been 6 years since we last did a video.
That long, really?
Time flies, doesn't it?
I still love, that's still one of my favourite videos, that one we did together on your veranda.
We're on the veranda again with a different house. Yeah, so what have you been up to?
Always learning, always looking. It's interesting, I know a lot of people say to me, I'll say, have you read a certain book? And they go, yeah, I read it once, 20 years ago. And I've done that, and I've gone back and read books, and I'm going, I don't remember this in here. It's amazing how when we read a book in a certain part of our lives, and then we change, or we get new life experiences, and we look back at the book again, it's a whole different meaning.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm a big fan of continually rereading stuff or going back.
I was just... funny, you should mention that. I was just thinking about that last night, and I was thinking, okay, and I've got a bookshelf full of books. I don't know how many, probably a few hundred, and plus I've got a heap of audio books. And I was thinking last night, okay, if there were 3 books that I should not just read but study, and Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill was one of them. The One Thing, I think David Keller, I think his name is. He talks about doing one thing consistently on a regular basis. And the other one was, what's it called? The Four Agreements.
Oh, yes.
And
yes.
I think if you really, because you hear people talking about reading, and that's a good thing, but I don't know about this idea of reading a book a week and all that sort of stuff. You know, you're much better, I think, finding books, research, and like you just said, you can read them over and over again and you'll learn something new all the time. And I think you're better off sort of not just reading a book, but researching a book.
It's interesting what you're saying. I'm same as you, read a book and keep reading it. But I've also, in the last 6 months, because I'm doing a lot of travelling backwards and forwards to Brisbane, I'll have The Art of Thinking Big and David Schwartz's the Power of Thinking Big, is it? I forget. But there's and then I go back to Florence Scovel Shinn, which was written in the 20s. And then I go to Neville Goddard, which was written in the 60s. Now that stuff's got a religious connotation, so a lot of people switch off. But because of all the reading I've done, and I've got 4 agreements, I have 4 filters I run everything through. So when I read something, it's running through those filters. And what I've discovered in the last couple of weeks is all these books are saying exactly the same thing. Every single one of them, because of the filters I've run through. And where it really locked in for me was Neville Goddard. Now Neville was in the 30s, 40s, 50s and 60s, but he talks about the Bible and God and things like that, which I know turns people off, but if you filter that out and listen to what he's saying and compare it to, say, Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. Now, I'm a bigger fan of The Law of Success in 16 Lessons, which is the original book of Napoleon's. The secret I've discovered that's in our face all our lives and none of us ever see and most of us avoid is everything's imagination.
Of course.
Everything. Like this camera, everything we're doing here, this suit came from someone's mind. Now, do you want to get into the bigger stuff, universal mind, whatever, but let's stay basically in our 3D human world. Everything around us came out of someone's mind.
For sure.
And that's where, we were talking about mental health earlier, and I'm taking a completely different view on that these days. If someone's got say they've got mental health, or they've got their label, I'm more likely to tell them to go and read Florence Scovel Shinn, or go and read Napoleon Hill, or David Schwartz, or Anthony Robbins. Now, Anthony Robbins is great, but even Napoleon Hill, when you look at these people, when you go back far enough, these were in the ancient history books, or ancient knowledge books. if you take religion out of the Bible and read it as a personal growth book, everything that we're told today is in there. It's phenomenal, but we won't do it because our imagination goes, oh no, I don't believe in religion because I'm a scientist, or I won't believe in science because I'm a religionist. It's these mind traps that we set for ourselves. If we open up and go, everything's imagination, the world changes.
Mm-hmm. Talking about, it is interesting though, because I have been speaking to a few people about mental health issues lately, and I think from what I can gather, mental health is becoming a little bit more of a problem, coming to the surface a bit more often might be a better way of putting it, given the last 2 years. Or is it that people are becoming more aware and realise that perhaps mental health is a real thing? I don't know. But
I'll put a caveat on it, because what you're saying is correct. There is a thing called mental health. There are people who have genuinely mental stress. Let's call it mental stress. But there's also an industry that's built around it whose whole purpose is to profit
and make money.
Make money. That's fine, but call it what it is. How much of mental health is the fact that people can't cope because their self-esteem is so bad they have an I can't attitude instead of an I can attitude. And I'm not downplaying the things. We know schizophrenia is real. We know that depression can be real. We know that anxiety can be real. But when we dig behind it, what's the operating system? What is the person imagining that sets it up? Now, schizophrenia, yes, it's mental health. But if you come out of the, I can't even, what do you call it, medical industry these days? That industry that's geared towards illness, and look at it from another perspective, we know that a lot of it's got to do with diet. Now, as you know, I wrote Kissing the Black Dog back in 2014, and I took a whole different view. In fact, I had someone ring me from West Australia recently and say, you do realise this is a guidebook that you've written? And I've gone, no, it's just a book I wrote on depression. Because I am frustrated the fact that people are putting out false information. Well-meaning, they go to a university and they get taught a particular way, but they don't use critical thinking. How many people who are depressed have stopped thinking and gone, oh, I'm depressed, I'm just going to go on a drug, because they're not coping in the rest of their lives, so taking a drug reduces the pain. And I'm not trying to devalue their condition. If they genuinely believe that they have depression or anxiety, or they genuinely believe they have a medical condition, they must go through that model, because it's the only thing that's going to work for them.
Yeah, I was speaking to a friend of mine the other day who had severe depression and mental health issues, like out of the blue, totally unexpected. This is going back a few years, and I asked him, I said, what's sort of the most important things that helped you recover from? And he said, exercise and diet.
Yes.
And I think, Can
I take that a step further though?
Yeah.
There's a step before that they haven't recognised. And this is Napoleon Hill, having a clearly defined goal and a burning ambition for its achievement. That person wanted to get well.
Yes,
without realising
but I mean, without complicating things.
Yeah.
Diet, you talked about that, what did you say, burning desire to... If you're not eating well and if you're not exercising well, you lose that burning desire, especially when you get older. You lose... diet and exercise is absolutely crucial as you get a little bit older, because you just, things don't work as well, but if you're exercising and eating well, you haven't got a problem. I mean, I don't like saying this stuff because I've been saying it a bit lately, but you go to the supermarket. I don't go to the supermarkets very often these days, but I was there the other day, and you look at the person pushing the trolley and look at what's in the trolley. There's a direct correlation there, and there's nothing you can do. But you just see someone. Oh, geez, she's glowing and looking lovely and fit and healthy. You look in the trolley and say no more.
You remember from Kissing the Black Dog, the 4 important points for depression, anxiety, or what we're calling mental health, is The body must be hydrated. Water's more important than food, and most people don't recognise that. And absorbing water, not just drinking it, which means you've got to have a little bit of natural, high quality salt to get the water into the cells. pH, the body needs to be acidic. The body needs to be alkaline because acid causes inflammation. Inflammation causes mental health. We know that. Oxygen deficiency causes the brain not to work properly, which can lead to mental health. And the non-physical part of that is gratitude. How many people do you know that got mental ill? Let's stick with depression, anxiety. How many people have got depression, anxiety who actually are grateful for their lives? They're more likely to tell you what's wrong than what's right. And I know I sound hard when I say this, but I'm saying it from experience of working since 1989 in natural health. And I've said this to you before, I will never say that I've been depressed. But if you want to tell me about your experience in hell, I'll tell you about a couple of layers deeper. Dante's 9 levels of hell, I can understand that. And I walked out the other side. But I'll never put a label on it. And I'm not trying to be a smart ass or arrogant, but the moment you put a label on it, you validate it. And if you understand the power of imagination, the law of attraction and those things, you end up starting attracting depression to you because you're focused on it. What you think about, you bring about. A well-known statement. So if you've got what you call mental health, yes, exercise, yes, diet, making sure you drink water, and the diet's the water, the pH, the oxygen, and change from stinking thinking.
Yeah, I agree with you totally, 100%. Yeah. But I do say that I think when, and I can say this through experience, I guess, when you are a bit down and out, and you sort of, you know what you need to do. For me, for example, yoga is just fantastic. For me, not
I've seen the change in you with yoga.
Not necessarily for everybody, but I've been doing Bikram yoga for a long time. And but the last couple of years I've sort of taken it a bit more seriously, and it's just get into that hot room. It just it's a love-hate relationship, but. Hey, so I strongly recommend that, but maybe it's not for everybody. But I do sort of. I know you're just giving tough love, really, and you're speaking from experience. But I think that some people might not see it that way because it can be. Like my friend who went through depression, serious mental health issues. He went and got help. But he was fortunate too in that he had insurance for wage support and all the rest of it, and not everybody's in that predicament or in that situation. He was able to, take time out, and good luck to him because he was insured. But the harsh reality sometimes is that people, you don't really know what people are going through.
No, and you're right. My approach is very tough love, but that's not saying that I'm trying to be cruel to a person.
No.
I'm going, it's like if someone is really down and out and they're stuck in a financial hole and they haven't got the insurance, what's the one thing they can do? When I say simple, I'm not saying easy. The simplest things in life are sometimes the toughest. There's a saying that it's most people prefer to be lied to than admit they've been told a lie. And we all lie to ourselves. So the one thing a person can do is look at themselves and go, am I willing to change? That simple question, am I willing to change? Do I want something better than this? And it's a yes-no answer. And if it's no, stay where you are. Don't try and change. Stay where you are until you get to that point where you're willing to change. If you're willing to change, start looking at it. Can I change my diet? Can I change my breathing? What are the things that are not going to cost me a lot other than time and a bit of effort? And simple one could be changing your statement to, I love myself even if I don't want to. Now that sounds a radical statement, but what happens is, I was saying this too early, excuse me, within inside us, there's the two wolves story. Good wolf, bad wolf. I use the analogy of with insiders there's a Mr. I can, a Mr. I can and a Mrs. I can. A Mr. I can't and a Mrs. I can't. Which one do we listen to? If we're constantly listening to I can't, we're on a downward spiral. There's no way out of that until we stop and go, something's not right here. Something has to change. And when you hit that willingness point, then you can go, I can do this. It could be as simple as no matter how desperate your state is in life, I can do this. I may not know how. Always feed both sides, so I can and I can't, because it's I can't that's keeping us stuck. When you acknowledge it, but by preface it by saying you can, you take out that inner battle that's going on in yourself, and eventually you stop listening to the I can't. That's what a person who's stuck can do. Now, if they've got access to the medical system and they believe in that, and they've got all the insurance, use the other system. But if you're stuck and you're down and you can't afford to pay your rent, and your wife's angry with you and your kids are leaving you, and it's an incredibly stressful situation, the only thing that you have control over is what you think.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. But it's, I mean, I still, I totally agree with you. But I mean, when somebody's in that type of situation, it can be tough, and it can be tough. I think a lot of you heard about this "Are you okay?" thing. You've heard about it when you ask the question, "Are you okay?"
Yes, I have heard of it.
And great in theory, great, but it really has no meaning, does it?
I think it is great, but there's a weakness. Are you okay? But is the person who's asking that question, do they have the mental faculties, or they have enough resource, or they have enough humanity left in them? Because a lot of us are more like computers these days than humans, to go to the next stage.
That's right. That's what I sort of meant. I think
so in theory, it's great. In fact, I was given the guy's phone number that ran that, and I rang them 3 times and they never returned my call. Now, I was told to ring them, not, I didn't come in unsolicited. A guy says, you need to talk to these people, because he'd read my book. Not interested in listening to what I had to say. So,
tell me, this is probably a little bit maybe controversial, I'm not sure, but do you think men these days, percentage-wise, might be struggling mentally more so than women? Or the reason I ask this question is, and you know, the reason I think about this question is because a friend of mine who's got a YouTube channel, he did a very interesting video a little while ago. He's actually in the Philippines, and he was talking about how American men, you know, it's almost doomsday for them because of the way that they're being treated. And I don't know, it's all this transgender stuff that's going on, and all, you know, and I think men in general, and this women's lib stuff, and throw, you know, blah blah blah, equality, and I think men are becoming very confused, to be honest with you. I don't think like most women. I think most women would be understanding of what this guy was talking about, what I'm trying to say now, but it's, I don't know, it's just some crazy stuff going on, and I do believe that men are becoming just totally confused.
Yeah, we're living in a different world. The way of operating, you know, the man was the provider, the little woman in the home, all of those type of things. I'm not saying they're right or wrong, but everyone had their place. People don't have their place anymore. We're losing jobs. People are changing careers every few years. Kids are coming out of university expecting a multi-million-dollar salary straight away. Society's going through an evolution or a change. And in that change, the people that are struggling are the ones that are fixed to a certain way of doing things, which I call unwillingness to change or unwillingness to learn. And they're not understanding a bigger picture of what's happening.
But are we changing for the better, do you think?
All change eventually is for the better. Eventually. What's that great quote? something about if it's not the end. It's all going to work out in the end, and if it hasn't worked out, it's not the end.
Yeah, well, it's a bit like that pantomime, Who Moved My Cheese. I love
Yeah.
that.
But it comes down to people don't understand that Florence Scovel Shinn's book, The Game of Life and How to Play It. Most people haven't recognised that we are in a game, or there is a set of rules we need to abide by, and the rules have changed, but they're playing by the wrong rules, the wrong set of rules, and they've got a fixed idea of how things should be and are unwilling to move with the times. And some are surviving and some are not. Excuse me. I think women are going through it as well. Like, women have lost their role. There's a great book, The Way of the Superior Man. It's a hard-hitting book. It's not for everyone, but he explains the dynamics between males and females, and we simply don't understand the rules. Our parents didn't teach us because they weren't taught. The transgender stuff at school, that's an interesting one. Well, let's not go that.
I just think...
Yeah, there's the education system's failing us, the medical system's failing us. We're failing ourselves, which we can blame all of those things, but in the end, we're failing ourselves by not adapting, not being willing to change, and not understanding. Like, there's 4 steps to learning. You don't know that you don't know. Then you realise that you know that you don't know it. Then you know it, and then you don't know that you know it. It's like driving a car. If you've never driven a car, it's scary. Then, like, you and I probably drive somewhere now and go, how do we get here? Because we just do it automatically. That's what's happening in the world right now. There's change occurring, but people don't know that there's change occurring. And I've heard it called the Great Awakening. Like, in some of the circles I move in, it's where humanity is changing. We can no longer use science and religion, which I think are the same thing, or the same dogma, to suppress certain elements of society. We're getting more of a equality coming in. Now, feminism's not going to give it to us. The feminine male aspect, or whatever is this new male thing, is not going to give it to us. We need to recognise that we are what we are and work within the confines of what we are.
Well, that's all you can do. I mean, last 2.5, 3 years have been very interesting, to say the least. And I know I sort of almost put my life on hold, but you can't do that. You just got to keep on.
Can I share a couple of stories about the last couple of years? I've been doing a bit of casual work with environmental guys, and so I work on a lot of construction sites. And early in that 2-year period, I had engineers coming up to and going, because I was a bit older than them, they go, mate, was this how it used to be? We used to spend time with did you spend time with your kids? I didn't have the heart to say to them, no, that really hasn't changed that much. But I go, yeah, mate, we actually had more family time. We weren't working 6 days a week, 9 hours a day, then going home and doing more work. Excuse me. Those guys were forced to spend time with their families. Now, yes, that caused the divorce rate to go up because the system, the dynamics that weren't working were exposed to us, and we had to go, I'm either in or I'm out. The level of corruption in the world's been exposed to us, so people see it as a negative. I think it's probably one of the most profound changes in society. Some people are never going to see what's going on. I think it wasn't Oscar Wilde, it was George Bernard Shaw made a beautiful statement once. 2% of the population think, 3% of the population think they think, and 95% of the population would rather die than think. Now that sounds harsh, but if we look in our own lives, how many times do we have look at things where, I don't want to look at that, I don't want to know. We'd rather just live in our bubble. The bubble's been burst, and across the board, in all areas, even the transgender stuff, everything's been challenged. And instead of sitting back and going, okay, the rules are changing, what are the new rules? We continue to try and play by the old rules. Like domestic violence is through the roof.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I mean...
and why? Because blokes don't have a sense of importance anymore. They're not feeling validated or appreciated, or think that they're not. So what do? They go and bash up someone weaker than themselves.
Yeah. I had a conversation with a friend of mine who runs, I gosh, I should remember the name of this business. I'll put it up on the screen. But he started a charity organisation where he collects mobile phones, and that's something that's really, really needed amongst these domestic violence households. But 2 million a year, 2 million domestic violence cases a year, apparently.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable.
But that goes back to a social problem. Like, how were the women brought up? Were they taught to be submissive? Why do men think they have the right to bash women? Why do women believe they have the right to be bashed? Now, I know that sounds harsh, but a lot of women stay in those situations because they can't see another way out because of their own life experiences. It's wrong in so many different ways. Now, in the good old days, someone that bashed his wife would be taken out the back, have his head put through the wall a couple of times, and made to pull his head in. But we now have a society where that doesn't happen. There's so much stress in the world, but so much of it is because we don't have a moral compass. Like Charlie Ward talked about, that's where I got that term from. Charlie Ward was, we don't have a moral compass anymore. Society's broken down. And if we take all the externals away and come back to a simple one, within each one of us, we've lost our way. Now, when I look back to my early age, you know, if I'd been put down, it probably would have been a smart move because I wasn't real bright. I was a cocky little shit, a little smart ass. In later life, thankfully I survived as long as I have, because in later life I realised that my core belief was I was a useless idiot. Once I understood what was driving me, what my core bottom line was, I could then find my genius and my usefulness. Most of us are stuck on being not good enough, because that's, you watch, everything around us is designed to keep us where we think we should be. When we change where we think we should be, that's when the trauma, that's when the stress comes in, because we have to make a change and we resist making it. So when we can get to the point of going, okay, I need to change, but do it gently, don't do the big... Well, some people, everyone's different. Some people just need to take out their sword, jump in and full battle on changing their lives. Other people need a slow, gradual change. But like when I'm driving, 90% of what I'm listening to is motivational or personal growth stuff, or stuff that makes me think.
Oh, look, I think you've got to. It's a must.
Yeah.
And people, a lot of people don't see the value in that. I've got several friends who just are very, very successful in their own right, and they rave on about that. Interestingly, I've never been a big fan of TV, but about 9 months ago, my signal, my aerial, busted, and you know, I never got it fixed. And so I don't know what's going on mainstream at the moment. And I tell you what, that's probably the best thing anybody could ever do is switch off the TV.
There's a reason they call it programming. Because we're being programmed.
Absolutely.
And it's negative. It's
but subliminally, like in ways that a lot of people just wouldn't. I'm not saying I'm better. It's just that but it's just even a lot of the Netflix stuff. You know, it's subliminal messaging. It's there to sort of.
Well, I'll use an example of some TV stuff or media. Star Wars, which is basically just a big love story when you break it down, or Star Trek. Most people would watch Star Wars, but if you actually sit and watch Star Trek, it's called soft disclosure. The stuff that they're putting in there about the technology that we currently have available, we don't know about. 2 different movies, but it's like one is people just want to be entertained. And I'm not saying that they're good or bad. It's they're already got such a stress level because their own internal story is that they're not good enough or they're useless or whatever. Their own internal story is like this monster that's consuming them because they can't see that it's a monster. There's a beautiful story from the American Indians. It's about this little fawn. Little fawn's down in the paddock, and I get really dramatic with this one, playful. Little fawn's in the paddock, having out with the butterflies and the grasshoppers and the beavers and just hanging out in the paddock. Sun's coming up. Anyway, great spirit. It had some visitors last night, John, Jackie and Jim. So he'd been on the terps. He comes out onto his balcony, he looks down and goes, "Oi, you, come up here." The little fawn goes, "Sure." halfway up the hill, the biggest, meanest, archetypical demon standing there, because his whole job is to keep us from source. Now, source is our own inner power. It's not an external power.
Yeah.
And this thing rants and raves and steam comes out. It's like Smaug out of The Hobbit. Right? Breathes for you. And the little guy, just because he's empowered and he's got self-love, just stands there and he goes, "Excuse me, are you finished? I have to go and see Great Spirit." And this illusionary monster that's stopping us getting to who we are shrinks in the size of a walnut and falls off the road. And off goes little fawn. Now, it's a story, but it's a very powerful story about when we have faith in ourselves, when we believe in ourselves, and when we go to the core of what real power is in our world, is just love. Those illusions drop away. Because that monster was imagination. What stops us in our own lives? Imagination. Sometimes it's a label, which is a medical condition. Sometimes it's our own self-limiting beliefs. So when we're willing to look and challenge our own beliefs and go, we're all so much better than we can think we are.
Oh, absolutely. But I think that's, talking about self-belief, I think a lot of that's taken away from us. I mean, look what's happened, just in the last couple of years, how they've used fear to scare the living daylights out of people. And once again, I think TV, even education, our schooling system, has a lot to do with limiting beliefs. And so what I'm hoping is that these last 2.5 years will pay dividends, and that we'll see a lot of change for the better.
Absolutely. I was saying to you earlier, and this will help your viewers, this comes from Napoleon Hill. Now, a lot of I say is, I'll give credit where it came from, because none of this information's new. It's always been there. You can go to some of the top speakers now, and I listen to them. My mates ring me up and say, "Oh, get on, have a listen to this guy." I go, "That's Napoleon Hill. That's Anthony Robbins." Actually, that came out of the Bible, because I know where it's coming from. It's not theirs, but they're not giving credit to it. So always give credit when you're taking someone else's material.
Of course.
So Napoleon Hill had these 6 primary fears. I've been in kinesiology since 1989. I've got a list of hundreds of fears. So this was a breakthrough when I discovered this. The 6 primary fears that stop all people, and this is what's being exposed in the last 2 years: fear of death, fear of old age, fear of illness, fear of poverty, fear of criticism, fear of loss of love. And if you understand which fear you're running and you can embrace it and transmute it, you come out the other side. But that's the 6 primary fears. Yeah. And sometimes we're running multiples. I know bodybuilders and personal trainers who are built like Amazons, but their fear of criticism turns them into a crying little boy.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, isn't it?
Because they never knew that their primary fear was criticism, but the fear of criticism got them to build their body. It also had an upside. It got them to build and develop businesses and create incredible online courses and all this stuff, but they didn't understand that it was fear of criticism. And what's the opposite of criticism? Appreciation.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's what's stopping. I'm big on video. Sure, I'm not sort of showing my face in this video today, but and what's stopping a lot of people from doing video even is the fear of criticism.
Well, essentially, I don't show my face when I do my videos, and one of the primary reasons is it distracts people. Who go, "Oh, don't like him. I don't like his nose," or it distracts.
You're talking about yourself.
Yeah, me.
Yeah, but I mean, that's something that as a video marketer, you really need to get over. Because
yeah, but the reason I was going to do it is because what I'm trying to say is more important than having my face on my mug shot on there. And I find that sometimes when you do video, and I hear what you're saying, and I've had to look at that myself, but sometimes I know that people come back and say, "Oh, look, I really need to hear that today."
Yeah. But the good thing about video is the message that people will soon see whether you're authentic or not if you're showing your face. And I think that's just something that there's no question in my mind anyway that a video is better without a face than no video at all. But with a face is always better. I think. So tell me, you've written 1 book, so is there another book in you sometime soon or not?
Oh, there's about 7 in me. I keep getting the idea, but it's just, it's like I go, I'm going to write another book, and I start, then I learn something else and go, oh, that's redundant. But I've got to stop and realise that while it might be redundant to me, the people I'm writing the book for might be just what they need to hear. So I had one called You're Not Broke, and then I found out Oprah Winfrey, I think, had one with that title, so I'm looking at that. The main one I'm working on is called I Want My Wings Back, which is about rediscovering our power and the things we're doing to stop ourselves. Because when it all boils down, we are the masters of our reality, or mistresses, if we want to be precise. We get to choose what we have in our lives, even though we don't realise it. And once we can get to that point of realising that, hey, it's not the TV, it wasn't my mum, it wasn't my dad. You know, I can go, oh, poor me, my dad was an alcoholic, my mum's a gambler and did Valium all her life, and they didn't love me enough. No. That was the fertile ground for me to go, I'm better than this, and grow out of. We're either spiralling upwards or we're spiralling downwards. And in the end, the choice is ours. And that's what, I know I upset people when I say things like that, because especially if they're invested in being victims, and they don't know that they're invested in it. Like you can say to someone, I'm being a victim, and they'll just about knock your lights out. But when you actually look at the pattern in their lives, they are being victims, but because self-esteem or self-worth or something is so low, that's where we believe we need to be. And we can, as I said constantly, we can blame what's going on in society, we can blame the label we have. The truth is, when we fill our lives with inspiring information, read books of people who've done amazing things. You know, constantly look for the best in the world and stop focusing on what's wrong.
Yeah. Focus on the positive side of things.
Well, focus on what you can do, not what you can't do.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to make a great Elle Macpherson. You know, that's a reality. I'm not going to cut it. But if someone's stuck and they're unwilling to change, but at some deep level they're willing to change and they really, really want to change, I can help them.
Cool. So if that's the case, how can they contact you, Wayne?
They can go onto my website, wayneellis.com.au. You can use search engines, find Glasshouse Kinesiology, Motivational Kinesiology, or just Wayne Ellis. I'm on Facebook.
I'll put the links down below.
Yeah.
But look, we've been going for just about 40 minutes, would you believe?
Oh, it's always fun when we chat. Always fun.
But look, thanks again for coming over and having a chat. I always enjoy your company, Wayne. And if you think Wayne can help you at all, reach out to him. He's a good guy and a ton of experience. And I'll put the link to his website below. And thanks again, Wayne, for coming on the show.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, mate.
Okay. And please, if you like this video, please like, share and comment. And we'll see you in the next video. Thanks again for sharing. Bye.